Mrs. Lily Yew, née Lim Chui Lian, descends from a long line of Penang Straits Chinese who have been in Penang since the 1800s. Her paternal and maternal great-grandparents are Mr. and Mrs. Lim Boon Haw and Mr. and Mrs. Yo Po Chuan, respectively. Mrs. Yew herself married a Penang Baba. She remembers fondly that her late mother-in-law wore the tesa and moa with her hair styled in the sangoi chignon every day. Mrs. Yew is passionate about all things Straits Chinese, especially vintage jewellery. She is a kebaya and batik entrepreneur and also deals in nonia reproduction and vintage jewellery. Being born and bred in Penang, Mrs. Yew is well versed with the practices of the Penang Straits Chinese. Having worked and resided in Kuala Lumpur for a number of years, Mrs. Yew is also very familiar with the practices of the Straits Chinese of Malacca in Singapore. This provides her with the opportunity to fully appreciate the similarities and differences between the Straits Chinese heritage of Penang and that of the former Straits settlements in the south, and this is what she'll be speaking on at this colloquium. Mrs. Yew is a member of Persatuan Peranakan Baba Nonia Kuala Lumpur and Selangor, Persatuan Peranakan Baba Nonia Malaysia, and also the Peranakan Association of Singapore. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mrs. Lily Yew.
Hello, Japaboy. Today I'm sharing my thoughts, grandmother stories of what was uniquely Penang Straits Chinese and comparing differences between Peranakan Chinese of Penang, Malacca and Singapore. For the purpose of this sharing, I will use interchangeable terms, Straits Chinese, Peranakan Chinese, and Baba Nonia for the same communities. Unless I specify, I'm speaking as and about Penang Straits Chinese. I'll refer to Malaccans and Singaporeans as Southerners collectively. Who are the Penang Straits Chinese? Is it in their DNA? Are they descendants of Chinese mixed marriages? Did their Hokkien forefathers arrive in Penang before the mid-1880s? Were they born during the days of the Straits settlement? Or are they just practitioners of the Peranakan Chinese culture? So many questions, but no clear answers. Let me try, based on my personal history and experiences. Who were they during the golden era of the Peranakans? Our forefathers were captains of industry, legislators, community leaders, educators, scientists, philanthropists, and also revenue farmers. My ancestors, great-grandfather Lim Boon Haw, came from Ang Si, Fujian, or Ang Hoi, Hokkien. Grandparents, Mr. and Mrs. Lim Seng Tew. My parents, Mr. and Mrs. Lim Ket Lee. My story. I was born and raised in Penang, but moved to Kuala Lumpur in mid-1960s, where I was exposed to other Peranakan Chinese communities. That was the beginning of my realization of our differences. My flatmate was a Nonya from Malacca. When her family came to visit, she addressed her mother as Nyanya. I called my mother Mama, but Mama to her meant grandmother. On hindsight, I realized our different migration histories shaped us. While most of our Penang forefathers arrived directly from China, some also came from Kedah and Siam. Many of my Singapore friends can trace at least one ancestor who came via Malacca or Indonesia. Migration histories of some Malacca friends go further back in time to China. Our ancestors adapted and embraced the different local cultures, resulting in differences in our lifestyle, in spoken language, attire, cuisine, material culture, and practices. While Penangites mostly retain their Hokkien dialect, Southerners speak a baba patois. To start off with, in our form of a dress, we use, for example, tuachi instead of tachi. While we identified as Nyonya or Baba, we do not address each other as Nyonya or Nya, Lily, or Baba or Ba, Jack, or replace designations for Mr. or Miss. Bibi, Wawa, and Bob are not terms of address used by Penangites either. In the photo, we call Krosang To, but it's Krosang Serong to Southerners, with slight differences in craftsmanship and design. For example, for objects, different carrier is called Wajan, but tingkat to Southerners. Lacquered basket is Siana, but bakul Sia. Tengtu, of course, is Tok Panjang. We use Hokkien terms of Teng Sa, Te Sa, Mua Teng Te, and Mua instead of Baju Panjang, Baju Dalam, Kebaya Nyonya, and Sarung respectively in Baba Patois. Even in our cuisine, we identify our dishes as Yam Chai A instead of Itik Tim, Gulai Ke instead of Kari Ayam, Jim or Chip for crabs instead of Kepiting. But we also use loan words and Hokkien patois like Galai, Tumi, Sambai, Zangoi, Achat. After more than 50 years in Kuala Lumpur, I sometimes slip into commonly understood terms like sarong, kebaya, and Nyonya Chang. Otherwise, my friends may not understand me. This photo of Yeo Po Chuan and family was taken in early 1900s. Maternal great-grandfather wears a Teng Sua Sa with frock buttons but called Baju Lok Chuan by Southerners. Great-grandmother and youngest daughter wears dark-coloured batik Teng Sa. Two elder daughters standing at left wears translucent pastel pattern organdy or voile Teng Sa over white Te Sa. This wedding photo of maternal great-grandparents Mr. and Mrs. Lim Seng Tiew was taken in early 1900s. The groom in Western suit, whereas the bride is in Nyonya attire. A generation later, wedding photo of my parents, Mr. and Mrs. Lim Kiat Lee, was taken in 1941. The bridal couple is in Western attire. My father, Lim Kiat Lee, as a stylo-milo young Baba, wears jacket and cravat. Batik shirt is not traditional Baba attire. This is my mother, Yew Guat Ching, as an elegant young Nyonya. My mother was a talented artist. She painted watercolors of her father's orchids. Botanical illustration was a very Victorian passion. This is a 1950 studio portrait of my maternal grandmother, Mrs. Yeo Teck Sui. Her formal hairstyle with 7 hairpins is called Sangui aeroplane. She wears a checkered weave Teng Sa and a lasam batik Mua and holds a delicate white handkerchief. These are photos of hairpins at left, a set of 7 hairpins called Chama, and at right, a set of 3 southern Chuchuk Sanggol. Nyonya slippers are basically the same, it's just the way they are called. At left, Kasut Kodok is how we call it, but it's called Kasut Tongkang by the Southerners. In the middle, Kim Sua A is Kasut Benang Mas, and at right, Mana A is Kasut Mane. Studio photo of my maternal grandmother and her 4 daughters, taken in 1951, shows varied fashion styles of the time, of different hairstyles, dress and footwear. Peranakan jewelry. Matriarchs mostly own 3 sets of jewelry: a gold set with gems for formal occasions, a set of gold jewelry for daily use, A silver set with pearls to attend wakes and funerals, and also in plain silver for daily use during the 3-year mourning period. Penang Babas created the bintang buttonhole inspired by Victorian star brooches. Nyanyas adapted it as pendants, necklaces, and croissants. Nyonya brides were decked from head to ankles, not always with their family heirloom, but more often than not, loan pieces from relatives and friends, a symbol of kinship and trust. All that glitters is gold. Convertible earrings, a smart innovation which converts a pair of studs to dangling earrings. Hongboy earrings, a popular Penang style which means phoenix tail design. Silver belts were used to secure the sarongs. Top 2 silver belts with bigger buckles are southern. Penangites prefer small buckles. Some belts are of gold, but commonly of swasa. Cuisine. These are some uniquely Penang dishes. Sampai goreng, purut ikan, bianchi, roti babi, jucha. To name some others, chupiah, hongbak, kari kapitan, and chikebin, dukasui. Are you hungry now? Differences between North and Southern cuisine. Some dishes are similar, but identified differently. For example, Wagam di Chang is Nonya Chang, Di Koi is Kue Pako, Ang Tan is Kue Kupiti, Masak Belanda is Masak Tempura, Gulai Tumi is Geram Asam. Otak-otak, on the other hand, is a different dish but identified with the same name. Penang otak-otak is a creamy fish packet steamed in banana leaf with daun kado. Southern otak-otak is a spicy fish paste grilled in coconut leaves. Penang cuisine has more North Malay and Thai influences such as ulam and kerabu dishes as compared to Southern Peranakan cuisine. Although kuah keluak is an Indonesian nut, it was also a very popular Penang asam pedas ingredient, cooked with pork ribs or black pomfret. Bamboo sprout dishes of Fujian origins have been substituted with mangkwang because bamboo sprouts are seasonal and not grown locally for commercial harvesting. Celebrations and more. I am highlighting some which are uniquely Penang and also those which are different from the Southerners. Being typically Chinese, we all celebrate festivals of the different seasons, make offerings to God and ancestors and life's milestones. For Chinese New Year, Penangites hang up red chai and also embroidered door valance, but without the side pom-poms typical of the Southerners. On the 3rd day is when beggars go from house to collect ang paos. It was taboo to go visiting. 7th day is birthday of mankind, when we eat raw fish, marinated like ceviche with 7 vegetables, possibly replaced now by yisang. On the 8th night for Pai Ti Gong, many Penang families offer a whole roast pig, whereas most Southerners now prefer vegetarian offerings. Sweet meat offering is bijian, but called chenak by Southerners. For the last day of Chinese New Year, the 15th day, pulut inti and pengat are cooked as offerings for Datuk Kong. At night, Cap Gomeh, young chaperoned maidens dressed to the nines would go in a convoy of cars to throw Teochew oranges into 7 rivers, followed by Dondang Sayang performance in decorated bullock carts. Young eligible bachelors would line the streets looking out for potential brides. As a child, I looked forward to those spectacular fireworks display from the esplanade and those over the Penang Channel on Cap Gomeh. rites of passage. During Wagwek, which is baby's full moon, nasi kuning, gulai cake, angku would be distributed to relatives and friends. The addition of ang i would indicate a baby boy and ang to for a baby girl. Birthdays are celebrated with lam mi or misua and red eggs. Tua Sajid are grand birthdays for those who have completed 5 Chinese zodiac cycles. My paternal great-great-grandmother, during her Tua Sajid, is dressed in a shohi. This garment was then kept for her burial. Funerals. Besides observing traditional Chinese customs, handkerchiefs are given to ladies who attend the final procession, while men receive towels. Roast pig is a contribution of the son-in-law and is served with lam mi and longan drink after the funeral. A pair of red candles and huat kueh are given to those who attend in mourning clothes. Matrilocal marriages, Chinjui, was practiced by some Penang families. Jiao Tao ceremony is a sacred rite to adulthood, held on the night of the wedding eve. The white samfu worn is then kept, only to be used again at death as undergarment for burial. Wedding preparations and 12-day ceremonies of yesteryears were later shortened to 3 days. Tentok was served, not nasi kemuni, nor a big nasi lemak spread cooked by Chompo's Hainanese chefs. Crockery used were interchangeable. Zigzag bridal walk as seen in southern Peranakan weddings is not practiced in Penang. The photo shows a contemporary bridal couple. The trend of brides wearing kebayas was only introduced in the late 1990s. This was my wedding tentok lunch in 1969. Dishes are laid out in 3 continuous rows. In the middle are soup dishes in bowls, gulai kê, giam chai ak, tu to theng, bao hu biu theng, chap chai theng. On either side are dishes in small plates, jiu cha lo ba, tu kwa kien, achat hu, timun cha ke pak lai, Hakian krabu ke mok ni, achat awak, chimcho, and stir-fried mixed vegetables. Desserts normally served were li tai bak, set liu chi, or geng guan te. Bridal favors of small vials of perfumes, toilet, fragrant soaps, or sachets of potpourri bunga rampe is now a forgotten tradition. Music, dance, and pastimes. I'm not aware of any Penang Straits Chinese music or dance culture. We enjoy performing arts of other communities like Keroncong, Javanese music with Portuguese influence, Ronggeng, Joget, Malay dance performed as entertainment for the Penang Straits Chinese. Cabarets were patronized by babas partnering Malay Joget girls or Cantonese cabaret dancers. Nyanyas later took to ballroom dancing in reputable hotel dance floors or in private homes. Pantun was taught in schools just like English poetry. Dondang Sayang was Malay ballads. Penang Straits Chinese performers were the exceptions rather than the rule. They serenaded in Malay, not Baba patois. Popular card games for Nyanyas were sisig and chiki. Southerners say mine jerky. Babas enjoyed mahjong, billiards, and darts in recreation clubs. Affluent Penang Straits Chinese didn't bother to learn skills such as beadwork or embroidery. They just bought masterpieces which were professionally made. Collectibles were bought from different parts of the world, like furniture and furnishings, weapons, crystals, Venetian mirrors, Bohemian chandeliers, Chinese export silverware, lacquerware, and porcelain became family heirlooms. Chinese calligraphy is used in plaques, lanterns, altars, and as decorative art. Calligraphy plaques placed above main doors of homes are called Cuisine. The calligraphy identifies the clan surname of the occupants. Example, Lim surname is written as Zihe, Western River. Jiho is trade name plaques used for places of worship of business. Sin Ban Guan, New 1000 Resourceful, was the name of my grandfather's estate. The Jiho was placed above the door of his trading office. In the photos, the Li family plaques uses the characters Long Zi, meaning Western Dragon, to indicate the clan, whereas the lantern carries the Chinese character of Li. In conclusion to my talk, I would like to say that although there are some differences in practices and styles between the Peranakan Chinese of Penang, Malacca and Singapore, they are essentially similar in essence. But to preserve our distinct Penang Straits Chinese culture and heritage for historical accuracy, there's a need for awareness and understanding. For example, the Gelai Tutup, a uniquely Penang decorative tinsel craft, is now lost because it was not appreciated. There's a need to record our oral history with proper documentation and archives, as stories are easily forgotten and misconstrued. Only a few books have been written eclipsed by volumes published by Southerners. We need to conserve our customs and traditions, a whole way of life that includes patois, cuisine, attire, artifacts, and spiritual practices, the whole Peranakan spirit. There are reproductions of our material culture, of porcelain, ceramics, furniture, jewelry, and attire. Spice pastes and premixes are easily available, and recipes can be found from the internet. It is about upholding our authentic Penang Straits Chinese identity, not replacing it. We need to know our past to chart our future, lest we forget what defines us. 感谢。